Okay, so this one's been long overdue because a while back when I showed the first introduction of bite work with Ava, not first bite work with Ava, but the first time I introduced the sleeve with Ava, someone had asked, or one of our friends asked, how did get started with bite work? But I didn't feel like that was enough. So what I want to do in this video is actually not just tell you how to start, but also the progressions up through bite work to where you see someone at a protection level, canine level, or even a pro sport dog level. Now, I'll go ahead, even though I'm going to go through these are going to be a good, solid once over. There's plenty of nuance and more detail in all these stages. And I'm going to go ahead and preface this now saying that I am in no way or I don't even claim to be a bite work specialist or a expert. I'll just go ahead and say this is something I'm just highly into and am an enthusiast at, and I am still learning from other people. So this way I can get more knowledge and pass along to you guys, but also develop more knowledge and practicality so I can train other dogs, not just in a philosophical way, but also hands-on. Okay, I want the knowledge, the practicality of it. So again, I'm going to go through all the stages of bite work. Sorry, someone's texted me already. Sorry. So if that's the case, if you're looking for hands-on, like from experts, I can only recommend go find someone locally, someone who actually specifies who is knowledgeable and specific and specializes in bite work and protection. If you want to take your dog to someone, go find someone locally. Find someone who is into sport training, any of the ring sports, French ring, Mondo ring, IGP. They will all have good knowledge or a good foundation of bite work because you need it in those sports, or just someone who also works in the canine line. Okay, so just by me, go ahead and name drop them. Ed Reyes, go look them up if you're here in Orlando. Anyone else, you just have to search your local area. So, with that being said, what is the best way to get your dog started with bite work? Tell you the easiest way, and that I've seen it a bunch of times with puppies and even basically 1 year and younger. So that puppy range would be just start with a towel or a rag or a t-shirt. And all you want to do is make it a game. And you're waving around, playing with the dog, and you're just seeing if the dog has the drive to attack it, to go after it. You want to see if they want the possession of it, if they want to bite it. Again, you want to develop that drive, that frustration, and that's what you're doing. You're just testing. I want to say testing, even though it's not a pass-fail type thing, just because a dog may not have it when they're puppy stage. When they understand the game and when they're older and they're more mature, they can really go after it. Talk to Ed about this a lot. Seen a lot of dogs who wouldn't bite at first, but then they understand the game and they want to go after it. So that is a great way to start. Use a rag, use a t-shirt, towel, any kind of cloth material, and you can just wave it around. You can put it on a long line and see if the dog will go after it. All you're doing is seeing if the dog has that ambition versus a dog who's more reserved, who wants to get tucked back, who is unsure of what to do, who's a little bit nervous, who wants to come back to the owner, see if the tail is tucked. That is it. Okay, so that is the first stage to see if the dog has it in them at an early age to start developing that skill. Again, I'll go ahead and say it, just because they may not have it at a puppy stage doesn't mean they can't grow into it. Okay, so take that with you. All you're doing is introducing the game. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a game. Okay, so after that, once you have seen what they can do at that stage, go to the next stage, which would be tug. Great way to develop obedience, great way to develop drive, great way to develop control. It's really the best of all those things. Okay, so play tug with your dog. I will go to the ends of the earth to say, if you're not playing tug with your dog, you're missing out. You're missing out on that bond and all the other things that I just mentioned. Now, I'll go ahead and answer the question because I'm sure someone's going to think about, if you play tug with your dog, does that mean your dog's going to start biting and like protection work, or, bite at people? Let's just call it what it is. Are they going to bite other people? The answer is no. Okay, because again, with tug, it's a game. It's between you and the dog, and you're doing those things. I use a tug for shaping and luring and obedience, and like I said, the control of it. So just because you're playing tug with your dog doesn't mean they're going to start biting people. And flip side of that is, if your dog is very good and highly skilled at protection work and bite work, there's a good chance they're very good at playing tug and like playing tug. So there you go. That's the next stage. Building off of that is, now you're getting in to a pillow, okay? Something a little bit thicker, something with a little bit more give, something you can put a long line on, and you're just kind of introducing the game even at a greater degree. It's a little thicker than your traditional tug. So again, if your dog is teething, be careful with all these things. Last thing you want is just to rip out a tooth. So again, take caution when you're doing all this stuff. But the pillow is going to, again, more precise of a bite, a little bit thicker, and you can get a little bit more into it and get a little bit more, for lack of a better word, aggressive into it, a little harder into the game. Okay, so a little step up from the tug. Also, a tug is just more convenient when you're holding it around your pocket or in back pocket or in your waistline. But when you start introducing the pillow, that's when it's like you can't hide it if you're, it's going to be bulging. But it's now specifically for the bite. Okay, so going after that. Now, this is just what I have. I would invite you or urge you to get a wedge that has handles. What I have is just a sleeve that goes through the arm. The reason why I wanted this one rather than a wedge, but I'm going to end up getting a wedge, just because, again, with the way Ava is progressing and just her temperament, I think a wedge is going to be a little bit better. The only reason why I got this personally, so do as I say, not as I do in this scenario, is because I wanted to feel the bite. I wanted to feel what it was like to actually get by a dog. I'm a little weird, a little crazy with it. So I just wanted to see what it was like if Ace or Ava bit me, or if I took a bite from them. So just so I can understand what it was like to actually take a bite. I'm trying to get into taking bites from other dogs. So again, stay put and stay tuned for that one. But essentially with the wedge or something like this, you're manipulating a little bit better. Okay, you're now actually getting into the position of what it should be like if you're running, or if you're defensive, or if you are creating that frustration or that suspicion in the dog, if you will. So now the dog is now understanding, okay, hey, this is a suspect. On guard now, okay? The other thing is with the wedge, one, with the handles, it protects your arm very well, but also you can able to get into the fight a little bit more, but also it's a little harder. So now the dog understands, okay, there's something in it, like in a tug, it's kind of soft in the middle, but now that it's something harder, they have to develop that strength in their bite in order to stay put and to stay on the object that is, okay? So that would be the next level. After that, now you're graduating upwards into more of a full sleeve. Okay, so again, you want to get very specific with these bites. You want to make sure your dog is actually getting on the spot where they're supposed to be. That's why you start small, and then you can work your way up to something bigger. Because if, what's that line in, I think it was American Sniper, aim small, miss small. Same philosophy goes with your dog. If they can bite something smaller, then as you give them more space, they can develop more of a sharper bite and more of a precise bite. Okay, so with the arm, now you're getting it to where you can do tricep, forearm. You can get into some motions. So you're just expanding your repertoire. Now, when it comes to should they only learn off of the forearm, or if they should learn off of the bicep, tricep, or leg, it's kind of hit or miss from what I've understand. I rather train a dog on all the parts. That's why one of the reasons I got that sleeve was just because of the flexibility and the variety that I could use. I could slip it over my forearm. I could slip it up top into my bicep and cover the tricep. I can do the shin. So I had a couple of different more ways to manipulate the material versus something that's so singular, for lack of a better word, whether if it's just forearm and legs. So rather than having all of these pieces of equipment, I could just have something like that I could just manipulate and hold and cover all my bases. Okay. Now, before go even further, I'm going to go ahead and again preface this, and because it's a very, very common question, is when do you know when to progress through all these stages? Everyone may have a different opinion. Again, I'm not claiming anything. I'm just saying this is what I believe. I've heard different things. This is why I say go seek out an expert who actually specializes in all this, so they may have their own take on it, which is totally fine. For me, I would just say when your dog can still have very, very good and a high level of obedience, and that you have a good high level of control over your dog, okay, that's when you should be able to progress. So if you're using the tug, can you call them off? If you're using a sleeve, if you out them, are they going to rebite? Because sometimes, even with Ava, she gets a little trigger happy. I say out because she's so quick, because sometimes I want a faster out. So therefore I do a faster release and say yes. So if she does that, sometimes she still misses and she will out, but then she'll go ahead and rebite without me actually saying it. And that's a no-no. Are you able to walk around freely with all these things, or are they going to go ahead and attack? During certain periods, like at class, when people bring them out and you got your dog on the harness, this is why harnesses are only good for protection and to create that frustration and drive, is because you're literally holding them back. They start amping up. As they amp up and get into that drive to get into that fight, can you still put them in a heel? Can you still do whatever you want? So these are the things before you graduate to a certain level, can you still do? So that's my baseline of when do you proceed to go into the next stage, is when you still have a high level of control and a high level of obedience with your dog. Okay, but that's just me. Again, I can only pass on what I know. There's plenty of stuff that I know I don't know, and I'm still learning. So again, that's why I'm being totally transparent with you. So take that for what you will. Now, I don't have the next stage after the long sleeve, which would be a full-on suit. With the full-on suit, that's where you see guys, whether at the top or they have the bottom or both, because again, how they want the dog to bite or where they want the dog to bite, you can kind of nudge or steer the dog into those areas, okay? But with that, you're kind of taking away, the decoy is wearing all that stuff, but you're now, even though it's for protection for the decoy, it's as if they're just wearing clothes, okay? With the other armor, for lack of a better word, they understand, okay, there's something there, but now again, the dog is feeling there's bone there. That's why I wanted this one for me and for Ava, one for I could feel it, but also so she can get used to feeling someone's arm inside her mouth a lot faster, okay? So, but with the full-on suit, you're doing a lot more scenarios. You can do chase downs. You can do specific bites. You can do runaways. You can do sendaways. Dog coming from the top, coming from the bottom at you. So a lot of variety that you can do when it comes to this suit. Okay. So again, edging a little bit closer. The end result will be the dog is wearing a muzzle. Your decoy can either be in a suit or out of the suit because the dog is in the muzzle, But once they hit the muzzle, that is as real as it gets. Okay, that's balls to the wall. That's as if it's the real thing, because there is nothing between you and that dog except that muzzle, and that dog knows it wants to tear your head apart. It just wants to eat you and destroy you. Okay, so with that, after that, you can have your decoy in the suit. You can do full-on fights with the muzzle, then do call off, take the muzzle off. So again, the dog is even more amped up. But that is as real as it gets, and that's kind of the end game. And again, you're doing more scenarios. You're doing different, I don't want to say sceneries, but different scenes. You know, if it's like something you want to be very specific for your house, you can do the house, you can do the car. Tons of different scenarios, but now you're getting your dog to the highest level, and that's where you start seeing dogs competing. That's where you see dogs at the canine level. So when it's that real, you need the muzzle, otherwise you're going to get bit. Okay. So that's kind of the progression. So when you see dogs at that high level, and when you see your other military, canine, sport dogs, when I say it's like the 1% when they're at that level, it really is, because you need a lot of control over your dog. Not every dog is built to bite. Case in point, look at Ace. As much as I wanted him to fucking bite, he just wouldn't. Great cheerleader off to the side. He would literally bark and support you and everything else. But when it comes time for him to get into the mix and get into the fight, he might play with the tug, and then he just walks off because he's an old soul. He's literally basking in the sun right now. Ava, on the other hand, and this is where I'm going to use me and my dog as the prime example of go to an expert rather than you just making a judgment call yourself. Get extra help, because you can't do bite work by yourself. You just can't, not at a good degree. You want a dog who doesn't bite defensively. Right now, that's what Ava is doing. When that happens, remember, I've always said, I said in prior videos, dogs biting is a response to a command. It's not a reaction to a situation. When it's a reaction to a situation, you are fucked. Literally when, because again, I haven't taken them out for 5 months because of my foot, as I know better, but just so he physically couldn't. Ava is very defensive. So even at class, someone who had just, buddy of mine comes up, got triggered, got very reactive, and boom. That is why when it comes to her, it's either depending on how you look at it, a positive or a negative feedback loop. She would bite. She will bite. I know that. Problem is, go back to the old famous Elliot Holt quote, which would be, for every action is measured by the sentiment it precedes. So if that means she's going to bite defensively, I just never know when that will be. But I don't want her to bite whenever I want it to be. I want it to bite with the intent because I told her to, not because she wanted to. When they make that call, that's when you're in trouble. That's the last thing you want, and you're fucked. And I don't want your dog just biting people, fucking fly. Just biting people because they got good at it. Ava can get really good at biting people, but if she doesn't know or has that self-control to not bite, that's the game changer. Okay? Knowing when to and knowing not to, that's the difference between a good dog and a bad dog. That was weird. Ace just kind of picked up and took off for a second. So that is why I'm urging to, even though I'm telling you the stages, and again, there's a lot of nuance and finer details that I'm sure someone who has more knowledge and know-how than me can dive into. I just want to give a good once-over of the stages leading up to, from how to get started, making it a game, getting the dog frustrated, building that drive, seeing if they will bite. You can start with the rag, tug, and then up the ladder you go. So get a second opinion, get a second pair of eyes, someone who specializes in this, so this way you know. So again, I always revert back to, go watch Andy Kruger's station. I love him. I think he's fucking hysterical, but super smart, and obviously his dogs are placed and they're titled, so he knows what he's doing. Oscar Moya, go to Mike Jones. All these guys have that understanding of bite work and what it means. So if you want even finer details to fine tune some of these things, go watch their channel. But I just thought it'd be fun and entertaining so you can just see what the progression is throughout all these things, okay? So if you're interested in wondering how the dog actually bites and what you're doing throughout all these exercises, I did do that introduction video with the Sleep with Ava. I touched on it a little bit. I'll go ahead and put it here somewhere. So you have it and seeing this is what I was trying to do to get her to bite, some of the movement patterns. So this way you're just developing that drive that you can then parlay into your own training with your own tug, or even, well, you can develop the drive with food, but they obviously won't be biting with their own toys. So if it's a ball or something like that, at least you can start developing that game. And remember, it's a game. You want it to be fun. You never want to hurt the dog, beat the dog just to get them to do something. That's the last thing you want to do. So be smart. Go visit someone locally. Find someone else online for those finer tuned things. Okay, but good luck to you. Thank you for watching. If you have any other comments, questions, or anything else you want to see on this station, go ahead and put it in the comment section. I'll do my best to cover it in future videos. All right, good luck. Talk to you next time. Done.